We then cut to a panel of Johan reciting the rules, saying that the infected would be executed, violence, murder, and anything similar would be banned, and everything would be okay if it was in self-defense. They would be managing their stocks publicly, and freeloaders wouldn't get a share, and that those rules would be their basic policy. The elder then says that that system was too risky. Johan asks him why. And then the elder says that Johan did have a point, but why would they need a single leader in a world like that, and that having more people made it stable? Johan then says that execution or mercy would be his choice, and says that killing anyone for self-defense would be not considered as a crime, and that any rule violations would not be tolerated. The elder then asks what would happen to Sherry and the other three. Johan says that Sherry would be forgiven because it was in self-defense, and that the others would be punished. They ask what their punishment would be, and then Johan says that they would be expelled. One guy then stands up saying that expulsion was far worse than killing them, and that it was inhumane. He then says that they couldn't let people like them wander around them, and says that 2 of them had tried to rob the warehouse. The elder then asks Johan if he heard what had happened, and he says that he heard that they had started a riot. Everybody nervously looks at Johan, and then he says that once it is all over, he tells them the truth. He pulls out a whiteboard and tells them that there were many dangers in the camp and that the wave was coming. He says that they have probably never heard about it, but he was about to explain that zombie waves happen when lots of people gather around in one place, and they start with zombies howling and the horrifying sounds of zombies wandering around streets. Once it starts, the zombies gather around the place. They run faster and become more aggressive. When they're hungry, get stronger, which causes them to go berserk, and that there were only 2 ways of stopping it. The first one was killing the people who caused the wave, and the second was killing the evolved zombie who started the wave. Someone asks how evolved zombies could exist, and that it was absurd. Johan then takes a deep breath and says that he was like them until he saw them for himself. But luckily they still have time, and that evil zombies only target crowded zones. So they needed their number to be under 20. Everybody is shaken up by the news. Johan then announces that he was going to have to go to search for survives, and that they needed to form a second camp. He then says that when he's out, the leader would be Jianwan. Later on, Johan asked where Sherry was, and Johan goes to the jail. He opens the door. It's revealed that the 3 had turned into zombies. Johan brings back his right hand and knocks one square in the face. It falls back onto the others, and another one comes out from the side and tries to grab Johan, but misses him. The zombie is then thrown over to the floor by Johan, and he pulls out a knife and stabs one in the head. Johan punches the zombies to death, and later on Johan tells Jianwan to take the gun. Jianwan then asks why he was giving the gun to him, and Johan says that it wasn't for zombies, but for people. Johan then gets back to Grant to share. Johan asks why they were isolating Sherry, and then he thinks that maybe it was because she was going to cut their thing. He tells Jianwan to release her, and Jianwan asks if he could come with Johan, but he's pissed off, saying that he was a stand-in and that there was nothing to discuss. At night, a zipline is set up, and Johan begins to zipline through the night sky. He lands on top of a roof and looks over down at the dead zombies in his trap. These zombies had piled up over the days. He gets inside his huge house and heads straight to the shower. Once in the shower, he looks over at his table full of weapons and guns. He remarks that he was using a revolver since it was easy to carry around, but he needed a loaded gun if he wanted to survive, and that he wonders who the people were wasting all the materials. He then says that he will be able to reach each block in 30 minutes, and that there was a camp there, but he hoped that it was not related to the Soul Survivor Commission. Later in the day, inside a building, an arrow is shot into a zombie's head. It's Johan's. He then swiftly pulls out the arrow and begins making his way. Outside, a man is yawning, and then Johan sneaks up behind him. He grabs his neck and snaps it. He goes up the stairs to find that there was a bunch of people standing and laying on the floor. Johan remarks that the people were drugged and that the zombie corpses were untouched and that they may cause disease to spread more. I think the residents had heard about hygiene before and that he should be careful. He looks down and finds a vent. He opens the vent and begins to crawl inside. He makes his way through the vents, and later on he hears somebody saying, "Get in." He looks down and sees a man telling another guy in a chair not to be hasty and that if he listens to him, he may leave alive. Yohan thinks that maybe he could cause a riot. The man says that martial arts were boring as he grabs the other guy by his hair. The men then say that they were done and that they took care of the zombies and only lost 2 men. The man says that it was hard to explain their losses, but they lost them because they were weird rookies. The boss then says that it was just trash being trash and that if they died, they didn't deserve to live in the first place. The boss then says that it would be nice if the guy in the chair could just change his mind and that he tells the guy that if he wanted, he could keep the girl for himself and some drugs. He says that all his friends had got addicted to the drugs and it was hilarious to watch. The guy then begins struggling and fights off one of the other guys who remarks at how strong he was. The boss then gets up from his table calling the other guy an idiot and kicks the guy in the chair. The guy is groaning at the pain. He falls over and is knocked down. The boss then says that they should take the girl out and that he didn't need any other as long as she lived. One of the men then reminds him that S.E. Young was sick. He then slaps the guy across the face. He stomps on him, asking who he thought he was. He then just tells him to die and grabs an ashtray and starts killing him. He then looks at the other guys with an evil smirk on his face and tells them to clean it up. He then starts talking about how it was time to get their payment and that it had been a while since he had visited that place. He plans the visit to be on March. Yohan looks down confused at what is going on. He makes his way back out the vents and says that at least they weren't related to the Soul Survival Commission, but they may become a big problem if he doesn't take care of them now. The guy then sneaks up behind Yohan and asks him if he's one of them. Yohan looks back and then asks him what he thought he was doing. Yohan is spooked by this and immediately turns around, pointing his crossbow at him. The guy looks at the crossbow and kicks it away. The crossbow goes flying in the air, and then he tells Yohan to stop. Yohan tries to grab his gun, but then the guy dodges Yohan and puts him in a hold. Yohan spears him down and climbs atop of him. The man looks at Yohan and begins hitting him with a flurry of punches. Yohan is not fazed by this, tries to grab his foot. The man kicks Yohan off of him. Yohan gets back. He brushes the dirt off his face, spits a tooth out, looks at the blood on the floor. He looks back at the man. The man squares his fist up and punches Yohan, but Yohan ducks. But the man knees Yohan blocks the knee and then hits the man with the scorpion kick. His cap goes flying and then Yohan points the gun at him. The man says he should wait a second. Then Yohan tells him that if he moves an inch. The man then immediately tells Yohan to calm down and that he just wanted to talk. Yohan then asks him why he snuck up on him. He then says that he was sorry about that and that old habits die hard. The man then asks if Yohan was looking for girls like him and if he wanted to team up. Yohan then asks him about his people. He then says that he doesn't have any and that they call him the janitor. Yohan then thinks to himself that he must be a survivor, judging by his fighting skills. But he couldn't just ignore someone so suspicious and that the safest way was to test him. Yohan then asked the man if he had any last words. The man is confused by this. Yohan clocks the gun back, and the man immediately jumps over to the balcony. He then looks back at Yohan, asking him if he was seriously about to kill him. The guards then noticed the two, and they immediately started moving towards them. One of them then says that they were to stay where they were and that they were surrounded. Yohan looks at a situation and just gives up. He thinks that maybe he should break through the front line. But then he remembers the guy back in the office and says that if you could just change his mind, that would be nice. Yohan drops his gun and surrenders to the guards. They head to the office, and the two of them are kneeling before the boss. Janitor then asks Yohan why he didn't use his gun. Yohan then insists that it was too risky. The janitor then calls Yohan out on this. The man then takes hand and slaps the janitor across the face, saying that it was long time no see and that he remembers telling him that if he came back he'd kill him. Janitor then says that he wouldn't have to if he could just listen to him. The boss looks down and slaps Janitor again. The boss then asks Yohan if he was next. One of the guards then asks what they were supposed to do with Yohan, and the boss says that they should just kill him. The guard then says that Yohan had a gun, and the boss is surprised by this. The guard says that he even had a silence on him. Yohan looks up worriedly, and the boss looks back down at Yohan, asking him why he didn't surrender. Yohan then says that he had 36 bullets and that there were more than 50 of them. Boss looks down and asks him if he would have used them if he had more than 50. Johan then says that people prefer to shoot forward rather than sideways. The boss laughs and tells Johan that he would have been dead if they tried, and says that his men had rifles. He then asks Johan where he found the gun. Johan then says that he found it in the weapon store around station. The boss asks if there were any left. Johan says that it's been 3 days since he last visited the place, and that there must be more than enough for them unless someone had already taken them. The boss thinks and rubs his chin. He thinks that Johan is a brat that's way too honest, and he doesn't show any signs of you, and he doesn't know if he can trust his words, but he was going to have to. The boss then says that he's giving Johan one chance to be his subordinate, and Johan says that at least the boss could give him a higher position. Look at Johan and laugh, saying that he really was fearless. Johan then tells him that he should show him what he's capable of, and that he should give me some of his men and let him go bring the rest of the guns. The boss says that there was no way he'd do that, and that he'd need to confirm if he was telling the truth or not. The boss then tells him that he'd kill him if he was lying. Johan then looks up and says that he had no reason to lie. He then thinks to himself that it wasn't that easy and that he was a problematic leader. He says that the location was right, but it would be foolish to leave guns there, and it's been 3 months since he's been there, so there's probably nothing left. But it should take them 3 hours to go there and come back, and that would be enough time for him to escape. The boss then says that he needed to see with his own 2 eyes, and that 2 of the guard were going with him, and that they should also cause someone to keep an eye on Johan and tell them to be cautious. The men leave, and the janitor starts smiling. He then asks Johan if he really wasn't planning to work with them. Johan tells him to shut up, and he should take a guess why he gets beaten all the time. The man in the chair then tells the 2 to be quiet. The man's stomach starts growling. He holds it, and he leaves telling the 2 to stay where they were. Closes the door, and Johan immediately pulls out a knife and cuts his rope loose. Jenner is surprised by this and asks him why he would hide a knife in his shoe. He flicks the knife back down into his shoe and says that no matter what happens, things have changed. The guard makes it back into the room, and Johan is above him. He jumps down and starts strangling him with a piece of lace. The guard immediately starts to croak, and janitor then looks at Johan, telling him that he didn't have to kill him. Johan grabs the walkie-talkie and tells him that no one could live after the holding a gun against him. Janitor then says that he forgot about something, and Johan says that not really. Janitor starts begging, telling him not to leave him there. The men make it to the gun station and find that it was completely empty. The boss is pissed off and says that 2 people died on the way. One of the men then says that maybe someone had stole the guns, but the boss brushes his hand against the dusty shelf and says that the place hadn't been visited in a long time. He thinks back to Johan and realizes that he had tricked him. He crashes out, breaks the table, and tells the men that Johan wasted their time. The boss picks up his walkie-talkie and asks if everything was okay there. The walkie-talkie starts buzzing. He asks again and keeps buzzing. Then the man says there was no problem. When they get there, they see that the guards that he took out and see that there were signs of struggle, and they realize that Johan wasn't wandering around, and he was probably looking for someone, but where the hostages were held was heavily guarded, and that it wasn't likely for him to beat the guards with his bare hands. The boss then talks to the guard guarding the hostages and asks him if anything happened over there. The man then says that everything was calm over there and asks if there was a problem. The boss says that intruders escaped, but they should have been coming towards him, and that he should be careful and that he would send some men so that they couldn't escape. The boss looks down, and menacingly he thinks that Johan couldn't have gotten what he already wanted. One of the men buzzes the boss, telling him that Johan was on the top of the roof. Boss said that he only had 3 walkie-talkies and asked who he was. He then crushes the walkie-talkie to realizing that it was Johan. He tells his guard to take 6 men and that they should go help Principal Shin. The men head up to the roof and kick the door down. They step out and search for Johan, but he's nowhere to be seen. One of the men noticed a walkie-talkie buzzing on the floor. He picks it up and begins shouting through it. Then his head is popped open by an axe. They all realize that it was Johan and locate him. Then Johan throws another axe as the men begging, aiming their weapons at him. As he throws the axe, one guy shoots an arrow, which Johan dodges. Johan then jumps over a ledge as he runs towards a wall. The men begin to surround him. He hides behind the wall which has more axes which he begins to throw towards the men. The axes land in the heads of the men. Then Johann jumps into the air and lands on a guy's face. He pulls out his knife, and the men all surround Johann. Johann slashes one of them in the eye. He falls over in agony. The boss tries to shoot Johann and starts aiming and realizes he couldn't get him because there were too many people around him. Johann sees a gun on the floor. He then goes to grab it, and as soon as he does, he starts unloading on the guards. The guards scream in agony, and the boss is shocked by Johann's actions. Johann sees the boss and aims towards him and starts shooting.